The Storm Equinox Solid is releasing soon, and here's a little review on what exactly this ball is going to do. The Equinox Solid is a solid version of the original Equinox that came out around March time. That was a house shot bowling ball. It had a strong core on it, but a medium of the road cover stock to try to be good on that fresh house shot. And they gave a few stats about like lengths of patterns and all that jazz. But overall, it did its job. Storm actually did a really good job with that marketing, and it was successful. A lot of people really like their Equinox, especially on fresh house shots. Well, now they're bumping it up a little bit and they're doing the Equinox Solid. This is a similar but different cover stock. This is A2S. The original was A1S. This one is just supposed to be able to grab the lane a little bit earlier and be a little bit stronger. And it's going to be a solid, so it's going to do it also with that. Now, the core of it is still that original Equinox core, 2.48 RG, 054 differential, and an 018 intermediate differential. The video you're watching is our friend of the channel, Don, throwing the ball. Huge shout out to Don, who got the Equinox Solid early and let us film him throwing this ball, comparing it against some of the bigger names in the game, the Theorem Solid and the RST Hyperdrive specifically. These are two bowling balls that are going to be the closest thing to this Equinox Solid, but we're going to see on this 44-foot typical house shot that it is way, way different. The Equinox Solid wants to grab early, and it's pretty responsive, more responsive than what we would have expected based on Storm's pressure that they did when the ball first got announced. Now, like I said, this is a fresh, typical house shot. We just changed the house shot here at Spare Time Entertainment in Owatonna. We gave it a little bit more volume, a little bit more length to try to be able to play a little deeper on the lane, but also help that the lane doesn't break down as quickly. So this Equinox Solid, we were worried about. Don has a very end-over-end ball roll. He usually likes the weaker equipment for stuff like this, but this Equinox Solid looked really good, like very surprising. You'll see his face on a couple of them. He's just kind of shocked. We didn't know what to expect going in. This ball looked good because it did what the Equinox Pearl did. You missed it out. The core was strong enough where it didn't over-respond, but it still tumbled and was quick enough to get through the pocket. If you missed it in, again, the ball is strong enough where it still digs through that oil, but doesn't dig too much where it goes left of the head pin. So he had tons and tons of room on this shot. Now, the main question was, where does this Equinox Solid fit? It's in a very unique part of the bag where it's not as strong as something like your Ion Maxes or your Mesmerizes, but it's not as weak as something like a Phase 2 or a GB5 or something like that. This kind of fits in that middle ground where we used to have the Absolute Power, we used to have the XL, we currently have the Origin EX, but that's a little too weak for this spot. So what we wanted to do is compare it to other balls in this range, like the Theorem Solid that we throw, and then also the RST Hyperdrive. You're going to see when the Theorem Solid is up that it is just weaker. It is just infinitely weaker than this ball. It's probably 2 to 4 boards more, a little bit longer down lane, a little bit less quick down lane compared to this Equinox Solid. So the big comparison was going to be those two, but this makes it so that both balls aren't really that close. Don actually sees this part in his bag for both of these bowling balls to be able to play together. Now, the RST Hyperdrive is a little bit different, where that ball is earlier and also more forward. The big thing with asymmetrical bowling balls is usually when they hit friction, they turn over, the cord flips over, and then it just rolls forward. You see that with a lot of big asymmetricals on the market. However, this Equinox Solid doesn't really do that. It actually rounds off the corner, not as much as the Theorem Solid. The Theorem Solid looks like a symmetrical ball, but the Equinox Solid, it actually rounds it and then actually goes through the pins. The RST Hyperdrive, you can see, once it hits that friction, it just kind of rolls forward. It makes more of a V shape in that regard. And that's not really what you want to see on a shot like this. You want that Equinox Solid reaction. Now, there's a time and place for that Hyperdrive reaction. It's just not on this condition. Overall, looking at the Equinox Solid, our hopes for this ball actually were pretty elevated after this review, after recording a ton of footage on an iPhone 17 Pro. The footage is absolutely gorgeous. They made a really good phone here, and I'm way too excited that I picked that thing up. This is what we're going to use for all of our ball reviews in the future. But we were very excited to watch this thing go down the lane. Again, hopes were low at first, but it looks pretty decent. Pretty excited for this one. I'm tempted to pick one up myself because this does fit in a middle ground area that a lot of people don't really have a bowling ball for. So in our 6-ball category, for example, we go Ion Max straight down to a Phase 2 is generally our rule of thumb for the Storm brands. This fits in between, but I think that's a good spot, especially if you're someone who only bowls house shots. You don't need that ion max. You don't need that strong of the top ball. You want something more like where this Equinox Solid fits. Originally from Storm, we didn't have anything really there. I would recommend an RST Hyperdrive in some of my past arsenals. Now I would recommend the Equinox Solid to be that top of the top strength level for your league shot so that you're not using the strongest ball in the game. Unfortunately, I think Stu Williams said it best where he said these kind of balls don't usually sell that well because they aren't that top of the top hook level and they're not a phase 2. So I'm a little bit worried about sales for this ball. Looking at this ball reaction, it seems like it's a ball that would help a lot of people. It'd be a good choice instead of something like that top of the top hook potential, but I'm a little worried about how it's going to do. Now, the bowling ball is also $200, so it is a heftier price point. It is that top of the top price point from Storm Bowling. It's that big asymmetrical range. So that also might limit a few people from grabbing it. But overall, as someone who is not on staff, not like as unbiased as we can get, I really, really like this ball reaction. I'm a huge fan of this ball reaction. I'm excited to try to probably get one myself to fit for me between my Jackal Onyx and my phase 2. I have a big gap there that I don't really have a ball for. The Onyx is just way too strong a lot of the time, but the phase 2 being symmetrical just isn't enough teeth for someone like me who's a little on the more speed dominant side and I spin it a little bit more. So in the future, expect me to be throwing this ball a little bit, but I really, really like this reaction. This ball releases on October 17th at your local pro shop or any online retailer. If you do want this ball and you're around the southern Minnesota area, come see us at Champions Pro Shop. That's where we drilled this ball. That's where Don and I have worked in the past. It would be great to come see you. Great to come get this Equinox Solid if this is one that you're thinking of picking up yourself. Otherwise, let me know what you think of this ball or any questions you have about it down below in the comments. I'll answer as many questions as I can about this bowling ball because I know there's a lot coming out right now, but there is a little bit more hype on this Equinox than there are about some of the other balls on the market. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I want to really ask that you subscribe if you haven't yet. It's the best way to help support the channel so we can keep coming out with these unbiased ball reviews. But otherwise, I will see you guys on the next one.